That's it. Good morning.
Good morning. It's June 23rd, 2024. And our topic today is choose serenity. And we chose this topic because we learned that this last week of June is officially World Well-Being Week. World Well-Being Week. And let's see, I'm admitting somebody here if I can get that. All right. And it's a week where the last week in June invites us to celebrate the many aspects of well-being, from meaningful, purposeful work to financial security, physical, mental, and emotional health, social resilience, and corporate and civic leadership, community relations, and care for the environment. That's a lot of caring. But World Well-Being Week allows us to thank healthcare workers, social workers, teachers, spiritual leaders, practitioners, and others who support us in well-being. So the first thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about this well-being was what Will Rogers said. And he said, quote, "People are just about as happy as they make up their minds they're going to be." And
That's really good.
I think that it is just so wise because it's true. It's true. And how happy you are depends a lot on just what you decide to entertain in your thinking all the time. We know that we divide people into pessimists and optimists, and that's basically whether they are just thinking about positive things or thinking about negative things. And it's a choice. It's a choice, as we learn in this teaching, that we can choose what we entertain in our minds, and that affects how we feel in our hearts. So it really is a choice. It doesn't seem like a choice sometimes when we're having to do difficult tasks and things that are difficult for us to achieve, and it can be very frustrating. We can get very frustrated, but how we feel really does depend on what we're thinking and how happy we've decided we're going to be. We all know pessimists, and we know they bring everybody down. So it doesn't do us or anybody else any good when we just feel, negative. It really can be just deciding what you're focusing on. I have a little story to share with you. There was a little girl looking out a window, and she cried as she watched her brother burying her kitten. Her mom watched her for a while, then gently guided her to another window. The girl saw her puppy playing in the yard and her best friend running up the walk, and she smiled. The mother said, "Honey, sometimes we just need to look out a different window." And I think that really sums it up. It depends on how you're looking at the world. And we all have hardships, we all have challenges, and it's very easy to focus on those and get into a poor me situation. And we can just choose to look out another window and be grateful for what we have. And so gratitude, I think, is a magic pill. It's a magic potion. No matter how frustrated you may be, how upset you may be about one situation, you can find others in your life that you can feel very grateful for. So look out another window when you're feeling down or feeling scared or feeling um, less than in any way. There was a phrase I used to use called pivot, that when you were, focused in this direction and it was making you unhappy, that you could just pivot and turn another direction. And it's just like looking out that other window.
The beauty of the word pivot is it's a small move. It's a
Right.
small move, and the difficulty is it's difficult to make a large move when your mind is caught up in looking out a particular window And that window has you feeling scared. And so when you're feeling scared, there's a desire to look longer and to look long enough to try to figure out, how do I change this? And the problem is, it's, they say it's going down the rabbit hole, that when the more time you spend trying to figure out how to get out of the situation that you're in, the more that situation surrounds you. And if you're not careful, can overwhelm you.
Yeah, I thought of Alice in Wonderland.
And well, I think that's where that comes from.
The
But-
rabbit hole, yeah.
But the difficulty is that when we're worried or when we're scared, we think that it's not okay to change our mind and to go to something different. It's like, it's a betrayal of our desire
I
to
have to
solve the
solve
problem.
this, yeah.
Exactly, that, so job number one almost always feels like we have to solve the problem. The problem is that sometimes it isn't even a problem. But because we've decided it is, and we've decided we have to solve it, we just stick with it and stick with it. So when you talk about gratitude, being grateful, I see it, the problem is in Technicolor and gratitude is in black and white. And you have to be willing to hang out with gratitude until you can see all the colors of gratitude. And the problem becomes black and white. And so but it's tough to do that. And it's tough because it's garnered our emotional attention, the problem. So if we're going to be spiritual beings, what we need to be able to do is to look out a different window and look long enough until we start to see what's on the other side of that window, rather than looking out the window, but we're still looking inside to where we've just been. I can't really give it my attention because, and I know I've shared this before, and I'll share it again because I think it fits, but how many times have you started to watch a movie and you've noticed that you're not actually watching the movie, you're watching your assessment of whether you're going to watch the movie or not?
That's why we always begin.
Right, so the
isn't it?
first couple of, and what I started doing with that is after a couple of minutes, I think this is gonna be good, I think I will watch it. I would go back to the beginning and watch it again. And what I discovered is I was actually missing a considerable amount of important information that the movie was offering me, because I thought I was watching it, but I was actually watching me considering watching it. How often are we looking out a window in which we're considering actually changing something or doing something, but we're actually in that consideration mode where we're not involved, we're on hold. And so if you can, when your mind is caught up in something to worry about, ask yourself, can I put that on hold? And can I give my full attention to this thing that I want to see more of or have in my life? And it's really a challenge for us when we're scared. And that brings us to a fundamental, I think, equation, which is there's only two real feelings. One is love and one is fear. When we're in love, it's hard to be anywhere else. And when we're in fear, it's hard to be anywhere else. And it's hard to change from that fear perspective that we often are in into a kinder or open or more generous or more loving mood or way of seeing things.
Indeed, and that comes from the Course in Miracles, where Jesus actually says there are only two emotions, love and fear. And you go, wait a second, I've learned that there's names for lots of emotions. And that's true. We do have names for lots of emotions. But for example, if you think of fear, well, the first thing I thought of, well, what about anger? Anger is not fear, but anger is fear. Anger is a reaction that you are going to lose something. It may be a loss of prestige. Someone is calling you a liar, or someone is trying to a loss of income. Someone is trying to cheat you out of money, and you feel angry about that. But it's a fear of loss, really. And so, or else you wouldn't get angry. A fear of reputation, fear of loss,
Yeah.
one thing or another.
It's actually fundamentally, it's the fear of loss of self-respect, self-annihilation. At some level, it feels I'm not heard, I'm not seen, I'm not in existence. I can't deal with this. I can't have this.
Right.
We raise our voice when we feel we're not heard. And it sounds like anger, and anger is that louder voice that says, I will be heard. I am present.
Because I'm very afraid of not having that.
Exactly. But the problem is when we're reacting to the fear, we're often not able to make good choices. because we're in a reactive state. So whenever you're looking out a window in which the world looks terrible and frightening and scary, and it seems as if you don't count, walk away from that window if you can, close your eyes, if you can meditate, if you can change your mind about what you want to give your attention to, give your attention to anything other than that for at least a little while until you can give your attention and intention to a better way of being, to your spiritual being, to your wholeness of being.
And when you see someone who is reacting like aggressive, or even if it's verbal, look for the fear behind that, because when we see someone as transgressing us, we want to transgress back.
Yeah.
We want to be angry back. And if you look for what are they afraid of, it can put you in a position to bring the whole focus back to love. And it just makes you feel different about the person, to understand they're really afraid. So it's very, very important to do, because when you just get mad back, this is all you want to do, fight, fight. And so the problem with fighting is it takes you out of joy or love.
Well, it also takes you out of choice. When we're fighting, we're not choosing anymore, we're reacting. We're doing our best to defend
Right.
something, and that defensive posture, unfortunately, it may seem to protect us, but in fact, it alienates us. It closes us off from our higher self. It closes us off from better choices, and it closes us off often from the relationship that we're in battle with, that we want to have work out better than it's working out.
Yeah, exactly. So if we can just do some other exercises. This one is from the Dalai Lama. He wrote a book called The Book of Joy. He is one of the most joyful individuals I've ever witnessed or seen and heard. But this is what he says: even 10 minutes of meditation on the well-being of others can help one feel joyful for the whole day. When we close our heart, we cannot be joyful. All the light you've taken in goes out into the world for healing, awakening, and well-being of every heart. So I hope I read that right. With each out breath, all the light you've taken in goes out into the world for healing, awakening, and well-being of every heart. So
It'd be interesting if you actually visualize that for yourself and imagined that you are a healing force on the planet, that you are part of, that every breath you take is a healing breath. And simply to hold that idea in mind can often have an impact, a positive impact on the mind that we're using, the mind that we're working with.
exactly. So we're talking about choosing to look out another window, and that's another reminder that you can be, instead of an effect of a situation, that you can be the cause for that situation. You can see an effect is a reaction. You're at the effect of your emotions of whatever you witnessed or experienced, but you can choose to be at cause, and that is choosing serenity and choosing love instead of fear.
A tool that you can use, and many of you already know this, but if you don't know it, maybe it'll be helpful. Albert Ellis, who was the founder of one of the founders, I think, of cognitive therapy, he gave us an interesting way to look at a problem. He would say, if you're feeling scared, if you're feeling panicked, you think something bad's going to happen, ask yourself, based on past experience, what are the odds that something terrible is going to happen? And if something terrible is going to happen, get the heck away from the situation. But often it's a reaction to a feeling, not to an actual state of existence. There's actually nothing bad is going to happen. So when we can do a survey and say, the feeling I have is I'm going to be annihilated, and the reality is that's actually not going to happen, we can then shift our perspective. We can then open another window of consciousness and say, this might be a time to take a breath, take a walk, take a look at, uh, for me, it's looking out the window and seeing the crows, deciding which highest post they can land on. Looking at something other than what you're looking at to change that perspective. It's reasonable to ask the question, am I in danger? What's the worst possible thing that can happen? It's not going to happen. That's good news. Now move on. Until we do that, often we're actually suffering from the fear of the worst thing without actually having thought about how impractical and improbable and unlikely that actually is.
Yeah, we tend to react like, we have to uh, protect ourselves or save our own lives.
Right.
When really what we need to do is step back. That old thing about counting to 10 when you're angry is just so wise, because if you pause, you're just less likely to be aggressive. Aggression is always trying to protect yourself.
Right.
So it can just really hurt you. Yesterday, Bob and I were involved in trying to solve some um, records, getting our records in order and finding this, that, and the other. And sometimes the harder you try, the worse things get. We end up getting nowhere with a couple of challenges. And, then we watched some good movies and things on TV. We relaxed, got a good night's sleep. And I woke up this morning with the answers of where to find some of the things, which is sometimes the harder you try, the worse it gets. You just need to relax and let knowledge come to you, because all of the knowledge exists that is in the world, and it can come to you. But when you are stressing and trying to do it all yourself, you are often pushing it away.
Well, you're making your focus narrower and narrower and narrower. So the things that are not in focus, that are available, that might be tools you could use, you're not using.
Well, and not only that, you get these stress chemicals, the
Mm,
adrenaline rushing in your body. Try harder, you can do this. And it really debilitates you. This ability of your mind to receive and know is not helped by that. And as much as we know that, we tend to just keep trying harder, which makes us miserable. And then we're not in a state of love.
yeah,
So I prefer love. I prefer serenity. And I do believe it is a choice.
it's a choice you may have to make 1,000 times a day.
Yeah.
Because if you don't make a choice, what may happen to you inadvertently is that you are living in a state of reaction, or you are putting yourself on hold, waiting to be back in life again. And when you're on hold, in a kind of way, you've done a self-annihilation. You're no, if you're on hold, you may not feel safe because you feel alone, and you're alone because you are alone. You've said, I'm out of this. I can't do this with you or with whatever. And that isolation often can even compound the problem. So when you take yourself away from a situation, that's to get yourself collected and connected, not so that you can be absent of even you. Don't absent yourself from yourself.
And nowhere do I do that more than with computer things.
Right. Yeah. Well,
If I
and
can't do it, I try harder. And often again and again and again and again. It
yeah.
should be working.
A clue is that when you find yourself asking dumb questions because you're in such a mental state that you can no longer think. Like the computer says, enter your password. And what is a password? What is a password?
And
Because
where is it?
where could it possibly be? When you're in a state, when you're asking primitive questions that you already have the answers to, and you don't even know what that means, take a break. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. Which you find,
Choose serenity
right?
instead.
You'll find yourself in lots of situations where this happens, where I can't even answer the simplest of questions. I must really be in sort of a panic state, or in an upset enough state that I can't reason it. Take a break. Take a step back. This is a time to recognize there is a higher power. That higher power is your power. You can connect with it. You can open up the window of spiritual consciousness and take a big breath in and say, yes, I can do this. And it's not always easy because like I was saying before, when we're in the middle of a difficult situation, we think if we just tried a little harder, put a little more pressure on it, maybe it would work. I remember my father almost always had a hammer with him, and he would think that if you couldn't fix it, you could always fix it with a hammer. And then very often that meant,
Hit it. You
yeah,
can
and
hit
that,
it.
that often meant he had to take it back to the store and say, I don't know how it got broken. It came that way. No, Dad, I watched you with a hammer. You got mad at it because it wouldn't work. And of course, reading the directions wasn't an option.
Oh, he didn't read directions either, huh?
He didn't need them.
He didn't need
He had
them.
a hammer. A lot of us carry a mental hammer with us, and when things don't work, we just take out the hammer and that's it. And then I don't know what's wrong with it. Yeah.
Uh, well, uh, at least we're laughing at ourselves because
That's
we
actually,
know this.
that's also something you can
We
do, is
know
take a
this.
step back and laugh at yourself that you can get yourself so worked up and so upset about a thing that minutes ago wasn't not only in your consciousness, it wasn't the problem, and it actually isn't a problem. You're making sure that it's a problem now, and some of us will actually fight a battle that isn't worth fighting, that we really don't care about, and we'll lose ourselves in the battle for no good reason.
I'm reading a quote by Ernest Holmes in a book or an article called Help for Today. It says, metaphysical or spiritual mind healing is based on the assumption that we live in a spiritual universe now, that we are spiritual beings now, that the kingdom of heaven is at hand now, that spiritual humankind is perfect now, that the mind of God and energy of the universe are available now. And so he believes, and we believe, really all the help in the world is available to us
No,
now when we can let it in. When we're so busy trying to force things to happen on our own, we're not inviting in help. And we can get help from spirit, literally
right.
from spirit.
So put
And
down,
that can be ideas, that can be ahas, it can be any number of things.
so put down the hammer, put your hands together, connect to the higher being, that higher source, the bigger hammer, the spiritual hammer that says, yes, we can do this. You're not alone. There is a way to make it work, and watch what happens, because we're connected to something greater, something more than this immediate moment and this immediate situation and circumstance.
Thank God. Thank God
I saw
there's a higher
I saw
source.
a video, and I'm sure you've seen this. I saw a video on Reels and Facebook. A little kitten is walking across the living room floor, and he looks up and sees a reflection of himself in the mirror, and immediately, jumps up, a foot and a half, and runs out of the room. He's terrified by this cat that he sees in the mirror that doesn't exist, because there is no cat in the mirror. So often we're scaring ourselves by our own reflection.
Really. So that is what we have to share today. And I hope you get that we are also talking to ourselves when we're talking to
Oh, no,
you.
this is all about you. It's not about us.
And it's just a reminder that we all need, that we can choose again and we can choose serenity. And so I would like to share right now with you uh, our screen that shows you how you can support this ministry. And we are the Centers for Spiritual Living of the Palm Beaches. This is how you reach us at our website, cslpalmbeaches.org. And if you go to ways to donate, that's how you may send us your financial support. And in doing so, as you give, you do receive. It is the law of circulation. And if you want to receive more in finances, you need to give more of your finances. If you want to receive more love, you need to give more love. Whatever it is we want more of, we need to give more of. And so say with me today this affirmation. My investment today is made with the full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so it is. I am looking for the end share. Ah, here it is.
And we're gonna stop the recording.
I have to go to the meeting.